Yes, guys, what's going on? Make sure you head over to stretfordpaddock.bigcartel.com. Check out all the new merch. Remember, members get 10% off. Go and do it now. See you later.
Yes, everybody, what's going on? Stephen Howson, Joe Smith.
Hello.
All right.
Yeah, I'm very good. Are you?
Smashing.
Good.
I mean, not really, but
Why?
I was fucking well bored last night.
Yeah, but we won. Get over it.
Just saying.
We're going to the next round. We'll probably play Chelsea or whoever's the best team left in this competition.
Yeah, that's what you do. They look at the rank, and then United just get from the top of the pile.
Yeah, and City will get Oldham or,
So
Winchester.
a comment before on Twitter. Says United are going to get Spurs.
Yeah.
And then someone went, well, who's City going to get? Because obviously the running joke is City just get garbage teams, don't they? And they said Brentford. Who was it? It was Brentford. Can you remember who I said?
No, someone.
Brentford, Wickham or Stretford, Paddock.
Are you in the FA Cup?
No.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You
but I
got
thought that was banter.
Yeah. What we're here to talk about today, then?
It's a big debate.
It is, isn't it?
No.
Oh, well, it's a bit of a debate anyway.
It's a bit of a debate.
Yeah, because, last night has thrown up a few talking points on social media, in the office. I say last night, it was West Ham game and also the Everton game. Thrown up a few talking points, one of which is David De Gea or Dean Henderson, and the other of which, mostly coming from last night, is Fred or McTominay. Who should be playing? Who's better? Who should be starting? Who are we trying to build a team around? And I think it's worth having. It's worth getting people's opinions at home as well. So chat along with us, get in the comments. We'll come to some of them as we go along. Who would you like to start with out of those two options? Fred or McTominay or Henderson or De Gea?
Let's go to keepers.
Start with the keepers.
Start at the back.
Start as we mean to go on. Obviously, Dean Henderson is, I don't know what age he joined Manchester United, but he's been at Man United for a few years, was on loan at Sheffield United last season.
A long time.
Been there for a long time.
In the crowd, Marcus Rashford ran and hugged him when he scored his debut.
What was that, 5 years ago? 4 years ago?
5 years ago in about a week.
Which is ridiculous. De Gea is Manchester United's number one keeper and has been for the best part of a decade now. He wasn't particularly great last season. He's maybe been a bit better this season. But the goals we saw against Everton, particularly their third goal, you have to call into question a little bit De Gea's, I wouldn't necessarily say bravery, but just his technique and his style of stay on my line, see what happens, which is great when the shots are coming from the 18-yard box or the 10-yard line. But when they're coming from the 6-yard box or 2 yards out and you still aren't close enough to the man to block the ball or to even hinder the shot really in any way. Calvert-Lewin didn't really even have to consider De Gea in his choice for that. He just find the net and it's in.
Yeah, there was no threat of getting clattered either.
No, and
which we like, don't we?
We do like a bit of that.
We like that.
Yeah, and that telly's quite loud, isn't it? Or something is. The thing with that is when De Gea does that, you never feel as though he's putting pressure on the attackers. You don't feel as though he's going to stop attacks. But he used to make up for that, or he has made up for that in the past, by being the best shot stopper in the world. By, every single time someone takes a shot from the edge of the 18-yard box.
It's the wrong remote.
It's not, he's got it. You trust him to stop that shot. Whereas last season, he wasn't even stopping those shots. Now, he seems to have improved he's making less mistakes this season. But you see it I thought we saw it in the Leipzig game, the away game, that last goal where the ball comes across the 6-yard line, and when the ball arrives at the feet of the attacker, he still isn't anywhere near them for it to stop the shot. That puts us out of Champions League now. There were a lot of mistakes in that game. You could blame Maguire, you could blame Lindelof for giving the ball away, you could blame Pogba for getting tackled so easily. But once again, we look toward De Gea for maybe not commanding his box enough. What do you make of De Gea as a goalkeeper generally, and particularly in the last 18 months? Because it hasn't been the best of David De Gea, has it?
No. I find it really hard to sort of comprehend my true thoughts on him, to be honest. I think you can massively improve him. I think there's a ton of issues with him. I'm going to have to get rid of them because I can't hear myself. They're doing worse than nothing. Okay. He doesn't command his box. By all accounts, he doesn't command his back line. You don't see him coming claiming for crosses. So the one thing that was having him up there in the conversation as best goalkeeper in the world was just this absolute freakish shot stopping. And without that freakish sort of shot stopping, which isn't really there at the moment. He's had some good saves this season, and he has had some good saves. But the problem is with a goalkeeper, you've almost got to be flawless. You've got to have every good save.
Yeah.
And he ain't been even close to that.
No.
Now, for me, and we're obviously going to get into this in a minute, Dean Henderson hasn't been twice as good as him.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's been better than him. There's almost not a lot to split between them, which is a killer of a... Like, if this is a dip in form, play De Gea through it and see what happens. If it's not a dip in form and it's a decline, well, that's hard to spot. I don't think he's... Here's the weird one, because his kicking used to be good. I'm wondering, because I don't know enough about goalkeeping, I'm wondering what impact having about half a dozen goalkeeping coaches has done to him.
In his time at United, you mean, rather than at once? Yeah.
He started off with Eric Steele. Eric Steele was the one who scouted him and begged Fergie to sign him. Obviously, famously, Fergie missed a match to go watch him, which is mad that he couldn't find another match. Eric Steele left. I don't know. Was it Chris Woods Moyes brought in?
I can't remember the specific timeline, but...
And then it was Franz Hoek.
Yeah, I remember that.
With Louis. Then it was... a big bald fella under Jose.
Let's call him Big Bald Fella.
Then it was that Emiliano who was absolutely fucking chocolado, wasn't he?
An exciting man. From the small clips of him that we saw, I say clips, it was real life in Perth. He's a man who is full of zest, isn't he?
I reckon he's got an entirely mirrored bedroom ceiling.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of that about him.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way,
no,
but
that's his vibe.
Yes.
And he was relieved of his duties for whatever reason not so long ago.
Yeah.
And now I'm not sure who they've got now. But that's a lot of coaches to go through and a lot of upheaval. I believe Lee Grant sort of coaches. I believe Romero sort of gets involved in the coaching, or did. Probably just completely tossed it off now.
Doesn't he?
Just shouts abuse in Spanish. Fucking Buddha. But yeah, so I don't know what impact that has had, whether we need to go... The attitude of United never seems to be what's the best available. It's almost a very much a make-do kind of thing, which is the opposite of what they did with their NFL team. They went, who's the best player in the world, potentially? And they went, Brady, get him. We didn't do that. We never do that. Why don't we go, who's the best goalkeeping coach in the world? Get him. And maybe that would settle him. Van der Sar's obviously CEO of Ajax. He's not going to come and coach Manchester United's
Stand in the
goalkeeper.
cold, throwing balls for
He's not
David
doing
De Gea.
that. But there's got to be someone out there with a good reputation that could help him. He's got a very unique style. So do you need to go back to wherever he came through with Atletico and find the guy that taught him that style and almost Mr. Miyagi him back with someone who understands his style? Because if you're someone that's, apparently he's got the wrong technique, hasn't he, where he goes upper hand high when he's saving stuff rather than low hand high. Now, it's very effective for him. But can you imagine how frustrating it must be for him and for any sort of coach who's working with him going, you're doing it wrong. And he's like...
Or a goalkeeper coach that sees that he's doing it wrong, but appreciates that it's the way he does it, and yet still has no experience in making him better at the new way he does it. Like, he doesn't say anything. He don't go, you're doing it wrong, because it's David De Gea. But he can't help him get better within his own style, because, like I said, they're not used to it. Yeah,
yeah, and he's weirdly good with his feet. He overuses his feet, some would say. I think we looked at one of the goals Dean Henderson conceded, and De Gea probably stops that. Because it's... Obviously, he's got certain characteristics about him as a goalkeeper that others don't have. So I wonder, are we potentially doing him some sort of disservice? Now, he was world class for a handful of seasons.
Yeah, at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, world class.
Yeah.
Then he was terrible, and he's a bit in between at the moment. Whether that's with Dean Henderson coming back, whatever the reason is behind that, we give him an absolutely eye-watering contract recently.
Yeah, someone mentioned this on Twitter, and then I repeated it yesterday again. This isn't confirmed at all, because generally speaking, no contracts for footballers are confirmed and certain. I believe he may be the most highly paid footballer in the Premier League. Is that possible?
I'd be shocked if he was, because I've seen some of the ones that the likes of Sterling and that are on,
Right.
and it'll make you throw up.
He's certainly United's highest paid player, isn't he? Or he was when he signed the contract. And I think it was only Sanchez who was paid more than him.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Right, I've got a few stats anyway, so we'll get into some stats and look at it based around that. Now, what I've done for the goalkeepers, I've gone for last season's stats because Henderson has only played 3 league games this season. It's not really a good enough sample size. So De Gea has potentially got a little bit better than this season, but these are the last full seasons for both of them, so judge him on this. Henderson, 36 appearances, 13 clean sheets. De Gea, 38 appearances, 13 clean sheets. So the same number of clean sheets. 97 saves to 96, very similar. 16 punches and 16 high claims for Henderson. Only 9 and 9 for De Gea. So that goes sort of towards the coming out through bodies and clearing the ball.
It's across the two.
Yeah.
It's twice as much.
Yeah. Yeah, and 11 catches for De Gea, slightly more than Henderson. 7 catches, probably because some of that is punching and clearing the ball out. Here's another one. 3 sweeper clearances for De Gea, 8 for Henderson.
Yeah.
So coming out, again, it's
Huge
all about
difference.
commanding the box, all about bailing out the defence, being willing to address the ball when you aren't having to save the ball. He clearly stands out in those areas, certainly last season anyway. And I think we can see that. Errors leading to goals. As we know, De Gea didn't have the best season. It was 3. Only 1 for Henderson. And here's back to your point before about his distribution. Henderson, 934 passes. De Gea, 786, which there's a discrepancy there, but not too much. Mm-hmm. Henderson passes per game, so doesn't take into account the overall number. 26 for Henderson, 20 for De Gea. And accurate long balls is 265 for Henderson, only 96, less than half, almost a third, even though he's played roughly the same amount of games, just 96 for De Gea. So the long balls that you talked about, controlling his box with punches and with his feet, Henderson seems as though he stands out and statistically does stand out. What do you think of those two? Let's. It's boiling it down a little bit too much. I appreciate that, and people can change, and people can adapt to new systems. But of those two profiles of a goalkeeper that we see there, one's better with their hands, one's better at coming out and dealing with things, and the other is, and Henderson's better with his feet.
Well, if you
there.
look at that,
What do you think we need more at United?
even the errors leading to goal, that's enough of a stat on its own to make you consider something. It's 3 times as many. If I give you a car that was 3 times more reliable or less reliable, you'd have some things to say, wouldn't you? I think if you was judging them on that alone, there's no case. There is no case whatsoever. The problem comes, Dean Henderson has, and probably more likely his agent, has to be knocking on the door going, where's my go? When do I get to go? When do I get to go? I'm going to have to go if you don't give me a go. There's only so long you can stall him without ruining him and hold him back without ruining him before the club has to make a decision on De Gea. And whether or not people want to admit that there's politics in football, they are, and they pick the team.
There's
sometimes.
politics in Greg's and in Coupland's and in the local market stall and in there's politics everywhere. So once there's 350, 370 grand a week's worth of assets on the table, you think there's not politics. It's massive and it controls a lot of football.
Because even if Ollie could go to Glazers and Woodward and go, right, Dino's my man. And they go, cool, what are we going to do with the guy that's the highest paid player in the club then? Yeah. And you go, get rid of him, and you go, cool, to who? You get fucked because the club will not be willing to just write that off because that's a lot of cash. Yeah. And you can't, we're not Manchester City, we can't just write off wastes like that. So they might have gone to him and gone, cool, you need to play him so we can sell him.
Yeah. Because also, as we saw with Sanchez, at some point, a player's wage actually is money taken off their overall fee if they're being paid too much. Like with Sanchez, we're like, just get rid of him, do whatever.
Go.
And I wouldn't say at that stage with De Gea is much more valuable, is a better player in his position than Sanchez was at United. But he's on so much money that who's going to buy him for that?
So you've just shown me them stats, right?
Yeah.
What's Henderson on?
120 a week, which is a third of what De Gea's on.
Right. So if you're coming to Manchester United as, give me a club, Legia Warsaw, well played. Okay. Right? So if you're coming to Manchester United, you're in the market for an expensive keeper here. Yeah. Right? Who are you going with?
Henderson.
Yeah.
He's younger. obviously got more seasons left in
He's
him.
on a third
He's
as
on a
much
third of the
cash.
money, and he'll probably cost you less anyway because he's less experienced.
Yeah. So who are we going to trick into buying David De Gea off us?
I don't know. And also, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, one of these goalkeepers, like you said, at some point, one of them will kind of die on the vine if they don't get played for 2 seasons. So in terms of getting rid of one of them, which we will have to do at some point, it is much easier to get rid of Henderson, whether that be on a loan or on a permanent, because someone's got to pay De Gea either equal to or more than what he's on now, because players don't
convince
go
him
down.
to take a pay.
Well, yeah, very
Not
rare.
happening.
No.
Not happening.
We've got a super chat from Peter Kelly. He said, when crosses came in, Hendo comes out and catches it, even where even a free where he came out and caught it on the edge of the box, maybe even a few, I think it maybe means there, where he came out and caught it on the edge of the box that De Gea wouldn't do. It kills attacks when goalkeepers come out to claim crosses. He did one last night where he was on basically the penalty spot, coming out between defenders. The defenders had no attackers on him, but still he doesn't leave it for Maguire to head it out or Lindelof to head it out. Even though they're free, he's still the one who controls it, and that is about controlling the box, isn't it? And there's one with the Wan-Bissaka one where Wan-Bissaka went to pass it back to him or went to clear it and sliced it straight up in the air.
But he was the only one alert to it.
I'm pretty sure Henderson was screaming at him for that as well, because you see him coming out with it, like, it looks like he's shouting. Obviously, we don't know. It looked like he was shouting, and Wan-Bissaka still sliced it up in the air, but he looked like he was fuming at that.
Interestingly on that, Wan-Bissaka's done that, oofed it up in the air. Maguire just looks confused. Lindelof kind of points at it a little bit. Wan-Bissaka looks equally as confused as Maguire does, and Henderson's the only one who goes, oh shit, and runs back to his line. I like him, I rate him, and I think what's difficult to assess is the quality of chances United concede versus the quality of chance that Sheffield United conceded with him in it. But when you look at the fall-off they've had this season, and he's one of the only discernible factors that you can put your finger on.
Yeah, well, United had, I believe, the most clean sheets of any team in Europe last season, and Dean Henderson had the same number in the league as De Gea. So they were sensational defensively. That was what they didn't score many goals, but their defensive base, which isn't just the goalkeeper, but obviously a good goalkeeper plays a big part, was a huge part of why they did so well.
Most of that defence is still there.
Yeah,
and they've got Ramsdale.
Yeah. Harry with a super chat says, bin De Gea off now, Henderson in, board of David. That's a bit aggressive, I think.
A little bit aggressive.
A little bit aggressive, but it does seem as though it's the opinion a lot of people
stand up
have.
for yourself. Do it. Time to fucking sling it. I don't agree with you necessarily, but... also, go on and give us your final verdict. Where do you stand?
See, personally...
Because to close out a debate, you got to have that judge's decision. Even though reality is often a bit more grey than that.
For me... I, with the style of play we play now, I think that someone who can control the box, who is not dominant necessarily, but is much more adept at handling set pieces against us, and who comes out of their box to clear balls over the top, with us playing a higher line, with us relying on holding the ball in the opposition half a bit more, I think there's going to be more balls over the top. There's going to be more of a dependence on set pieces for opposition teams, and like it's no coincidence that every single time De Gea plays, when the opposition gets a corner, there are 5 opposition players in the 6-yard box. Not the 18-yard box, the 6-yard box. Yesterday, Henderson's playing, there was 1 in the 6-yard box, and they don't kick it to him because they know that Henderson will come out and at least try and claim it. You're not going to get a free header off. If we continue playing the way we are now, I think Henderson is more suited to that style.
I think the number one communication for the one thing is communication, as he says, butchering communication. I think the number one thing for a goalkeeper is communication.
Yeah.
Some people would like playing in front of shouty Peter Schmeichel style goalkeepers. Some people maybe prefer the calmer sort of thingy. I think Henderson sort of straddles a little bit between the two of those. He's got a shouty loon in him, but I think he just sort of has almost like goalkeeping Tourette's as well, where he's just constantly talking because he just feels the need to fill that dead air a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably more comforting to play in front of than the...
Yeah, and you know, again, this is conjecture and just my opinion. If Dean Henderson had been Man United's number 1 for as long as De Gea had been, and our captain left the club, I believe he would have been given the captaincy, having been our number 1 with his style for 8 years like De Gea's been, and yet De Gea was not really seriously
He's won the armband a couple of times, hasn't he?
He has, but
he's never been a captain.
He was never in question for replacing Ashley Young as captain. Some people wanted it. A lot of people said Pogba and Rashford and
fucking people we've had wear that armband.
Yeah,
it's mad how much that gets passed around.
it is. Go on then. What are you saying?
I reluctantly lean over towards Henderson.
Yeah, I think I do as well.
Although I think getting rid of De Gea feels a bit strong, I would maybe phase him out.
Mm-hmm. But the problem with phasing him out is who wants to buy him at the end of the season?
Correct.
When he's played 3 of the last 20 games.
Phased the guy out.
Yeah.
So
it's hard.
Good luck getting rid of him.
Adam Sweeney with the Super Chat says, if Ollie doesn't act soon, we will lose an up-and-coming world-class goalkeeper. They're very hard to find. Sometimes you have to put the team first. I think that's kind of echoing what we said. And we know how hard they are to find. I mean, no offence to Barthez, but between Schmeichel and Van der Sar was a little bit tricky in goal for United, wasn't it? Dean Meehan says, a bit unrelated, but just in relation to Steve's review last night, have a look at Zachariah from Mönchengladbach as the answer for a single pivot number 6. Very talented young player. Right, let's move on. Speaking of single pivot number 6s, it's a nice little segue there. Let's move on to Fred and McTominay.
Yeah, because neither of those are that.
Neither of those are that, but what they
that's what I want, Joe.
Exactly, that's what we all want. So Fred and McTominay tend to play together, or they have a history of playing together. Recently, they haven't played together as much, and last night we saw Fred starting alongside Matic, which, you know, we controlled the game, but we see Fred's limitations quite clearly.
Fred's a good footballer if you tell him not to shoot.
Yeah, but seemingly that's not working. Although one thing I've noticed with these two is, or especially with Fred, his passing's got worse. Like, I feel like he's lost so much confidence in his ability to kick the ball, whether that's in front of goal or whether that's just passing. It seems to have got a lot worse, and I can't really work out why that is, or maybe it's just.
I think Fred has to, and the McTominay-Fred partnership, I think is excellent, and I mean excellent. I don't mean excellent, but I mean excellent. When you're probably going to cede possession,
PSG away,
City, there's times when you go, they're just better than us. Liverpool are, let's be honest with ourselves, although they're fragile and you can probably get points against them, there's chances in games where you go, there's opposition you come up against, you go, ooh, we're going to get beat here. So we have to prevent that. McTominay and Fred should be a go-to for those situations. Now, I've got no problem if they only play 25 games each a season. And that's heavily rotated.
Which a lot of people
games.
think sounds like a lot, but Van der Beeker's already played 22 games or 23 games this season, and people are acting like he hasn't touched the pitch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'd be well happy with that. I like McTominay. I think he's, and I hear that he is a bit of a leader behind the scenes, and a character behind the scenes. And I think having those sorts of players that come in and do that, he's going to get compared to Fletcher because of his nationality and he's an academy player and that. I don't think there's anything like Fletcher as a player. But you do need those sorts of players who, they're just in and around the squad. They're never going to be a superstar of the squad. They're never going to be a Ballon d'Or winner. Jesse kind of fulfilled that role for a number of years before, like, doing nothing for the last 2.5 years in a United shirt at least. And I think those sort of, like, your Ji-Sung Parks, you don't play every week, but when you come in, you've got a specific job, you fulfill the job and everyone likes you for it. That's McTominay's role. And to a lesser extent, I think that's also Fred's role. But if United want to be an elite football team, and this goes back to the super chat we got a second ago, I personally think United need a single number 6. And I don't think Fred or McTominay are that guy.
Well, let's have a look at a couple of the stats from both of them then, because at the moment, we are either playing one or the other or both in pretty much every game. So there has to be a question, when Paul Pogba's back fit, Matic obviously played next to Fred yesterday. Here's a few stats. Offensively and defensively, there's way more stats you could look at, this pass percentages, all that sort of thing. But these are just in terms of goals and tackles. So Fred has made 17 appearances, McTominay 20. Fred with 15 total shots to McTominay's 12, so 3 more. Fred has scored no goals, no assists as well. McTominay has scored 4 goals. Now, Fred's expected goals, which you're a big fan of, I'm not such a big fan of, but just for the sake of argument in terms of the types of shots that they both take, where you think, well, McTominay gets in better positions. Well, Fred's expected goals over those 15 shots is 0.86 cumulatively, and McTominay's is 0.81, and yet he's got 4 goals off the back of it. So it's not about what chances they get, and let alone the fact that McTominay makes those chances for himself anyway with his runs. But McTominay's clearly a better finisher. We all see that. He's very good from outside the box. And sorry, just before we go on, and the tackles, McTominay 47 tackles with a 45% success rate. McTominay substantially less with 32 tackles, but a similar success rate of 44%. So Fred is a bigger tackler. We kind of know that. McTominay does a bit more going forward. We kind of know that. I personally think McTominay would work better next to a number 6 than Fred would, because Fred offers so little going forward, certainly in terms of goals and chances created.
But that's a very limited sample size.
It is very
of stats.
limited, yeah.
And there's these intangibles. People want to focus on 1v1s, dribble past, the pass completions, this, that, and the other. But there's so much more. When we're talking about defenders, this is midfielders, but when you're talking about like the likes of defenders, when a defender is running back towards his goal, he's ineffective. And that's one of my main issues with Luke Shaw, for example. I see him constantly running back with his back to the play because he's either lazy, if you want to interpret it like that, he's not fit enough to get back, or he doesn't know that he needs to get back. When a defence is set, such as what we came up against last night, it's fucking hard.
Basically,
when they're looking at you,
9 men on the edge of the 18-yard box, wasn't there?
But the reason that it's hard is because they're looking at you and they can see you and they can see that run there and they can see that run there. When he turns round, they don't have a clue what's going on.
No.
So a defender that can get in that position early is more effective like that. Something that Scott and Fred are pretty good at because they're not flawless at it. Both of them have been left for dust by midfields in the past, but that's football. They're pretty good at being in position, but there's no stat for that.
No.
There's no stat that tells you that they were facing the goal when they became 1v1. Or, it doesn't get included in the 1v1 success when they was in the right position. Some people have a higher 1v1 success, but they would have an even higher 1v1 success if it's in the right fucking place to have more 1v1s. There's stuff like interceptions and blocks which you can look at, which sort of pads it out, and you can, especially if you use the Stat Zone app, you can sort of see where those sort of things are happening. Are they near the halfway line or are they in front of our box? What's the opposite side one doing? Okay, so either he's covering for him or he's fucking about near the halfway line. Where's the average sort of involvement for this guy? I think that both of them aren't full 6s. And they're not full 8s. Or if they are, I think Paul Pogba's an 8. They're not the same as them two.
No. I would say of the two, McTominay is closer to Paul Pogba, not just because he's taller and bigger like Pogba is, but he carries the ball better than Fred. I think he's a better passer than Fred, although he's not a great passer.
I think his passing's got a lot to be desired.
He's clearly better in front of goal than Fred. He's better in the air than Fred, and he's stronger than Fred. Obviously, Fred has things that he's better at. He makes more tackles. He sits a bit deeper.
I think his anticipation and his aggression defensively, and I think he covers for other people, which is dirty work that you're thankful of in a team. That again, it's hard to quantify. That's I like stats, and I think stats help paint a picture, but they're not the picture. They help interpret a picture. That's why I like Mason Greenwood's expected goals from last year, because he fucking destroyed it. He was taking 3 and 4% chances, literally shooting from where Fred does, but he's a much better finisher, so he outperforms it. Fred underperforms it because he's not. Like that's you can interpret. People go, well, the expected goals isn't exactly perfect, therefore it's a load of bollocks. It's not the case. Good players will outperform it, poor players will underperform it. It's literally a measurement of tens of thousands of goals taken from every single coordinate on the football pitch, with and without defenders in front of them, and etc. And I think it's also headed and shot as well with a foot, and it gives you a very rough. I would say probability, but it's not necessarily a probability because it's not forward facing. It's reactive, so it's like what percentage of those chances go in. Therefore, you can expect when you shoot from here, if you shoot it from here 100 times, 3 go in. And Andres Pereira shot from those places and didn't score, or scored 1 and then carried on. Yeah,
that can be almost a curse, can't it? Someone getting 1 long range goal early on.
That's the problem, is that they're spectacular. They're spectacular, they're memorable, they get replayed, and they go, I'm fucking doing that. But the place that you're supposed to shoot from is inside the width of the 6-yard box and inside the box. Shoot from there, score some goals.
Yeah. We've got a super chat from Harry. He said, McTominay and Fred have never lost a league game together. I don't believe that. Surely last season, at least, we lost a game with them two in there. We lost about 12 games last year.
I'll reserve judgment, and I hope that's the trait.
I hope that's true. I personally would love that to be true. I can't believe it. Maybe this season.
Yeah. Never.
But certainly...
Never's a long way.
Never is a long way. People in the comments saying McTominay is goals, assists, tackles, passes. You get it all. Do you think McTominay offers a bit more than Fred? Whether it's, as you know, great quality in all those areas, a bit more versatile, which is maybe why he's a bit more of a number 8.
I think he catches the eye more. His goals, obviously, he don't score shit goals. He scores bangers.
Yeah.
But I think he's had some very good defensive performances at Chelsea a couple of years ago against Conte. Stands out as a brilliant defensive performance. I think kind of went under the radar a little bit, but he did a brilliant job doubling up against Eden Hazard. I think. I think they both offer different things. I think Fred does a lot more of the dirty work that you just sort of don't notice, and I think he's constantly shuttling and being available for people. And again, putting yourself off the ball runs are fucking mega important.
Yeah.
And there's no stat for them.
No.
Like, how many times did you move off the ball? I mean, obviously, when you do the sort of distances Cavani's doing, who someone needs to check his piss for starters.
Yeah.
Because that's bananas, the sort of movement.
The number of short sprints he does and spaces he makes. Like, the one the other day, it wasn't him, it was Rashford, but it was for a Cavani goal, where Rashford and Shaw are on the corner of the box. This is against Southampton. And Rashford takes a run into the 18-yard box and then cuts into the 6-yard box. And it just drags everyone off of Shaw. Fred passed it to Shaw, who's got no one near him, and he can just chip it onto Cavani's head. But what made that goal was Rashford's run, which took the defenders away. But
off the ball runs are not... they're not as respected in football as they are in other sports. Like in rugby, in basketball, in things like that, they're so respected. Obviously, American football. But like in football, they're kind of seen as like, didn't score, did you? Do you know who was really good at creating space with off-the-ball runs for other people?
Ronaldo.
Lukaku. Weirdly good because he was such a fucking unit. You go, oh, mark him.
Lingard's good at that as well.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of runs. Juan Martinez.
Not as tracked.
No, because people
you look at
quite
him
respect him as much.
Don't bother.
Juan Martinez says Scott had good forward passes in the last game. He's getting better. You're not a big fan of his passing, are you?
No.
Is that because you're comparing it to Pogba, or is that just because you think he's not up to scratch?
There's levels to the game, and when someone tells me he's a good passer, I think of Pogba's, Carrick's, and I go, no. He's not
don't even put Scholes in that question because he's another level
I just think,
that.
But even Wayne Rooney, people used to go, oh, Rooney's a good passer. No, he does the same in his head. So that's Scholes. Scholes did this. No, Scholes didn't take 14 seconds to land at someone's foot. It took 2. Yeah. Like there's levels to it, and I think Scott does things a little bit mechanically, which might, on the surface of things, sort of get a similar result. But I think there's a slickness lacking. I think he doesn't break the lines enough. I think he makes the easy pass, the obvious pass, rather than I didn't see that one. Like when you look at Paul Scholes, sometimes you go, how the fuck has he seen? How has he known he's free?
The one I think of with that is, do you remember the Carrick one to Hernandez against Chelsea in the FA Cup? Where he's just stood on the centre circle and just chips it straight over the defence onto Hernandez, who puts it in. You think, where did that pass even come from? I don't think we've got anyone in the squad except Pogba maybe who can play that. Lindelof's made a couple of them this season where they're sort of over and behind and Rashford's running onto him. But
again, they take a minute to get there. Yeah. Not quite, but no, they take a portion of time to get there.
Yeah.
I've seen Scholes do stuff where he's going give and go, give and go, give and go, give and go. And then he's allowed one. I used to love the Paul Scholes, let it run across your body. Yeah. And then he's hit it, but he shot it. He's hit it that hard, he shot it. The outside of his foot, and it's just spun into the path of someone on a wing. And you're like, you was facing this way the entire time. No one saw you check your shoulder, and you just turned and just first time, bosh. And you think, there's a speed and a quality and an intensity to the elite level passers that the likes of McTominay and Steven Gerrard aren't quite at.
Yeah. Ross Murphy with the super chat says, maybe you can move Van de Beek to the number 6. He played there at Ajax, or by Ruben Neves. Maybe free up Fred. Fred might up his game with competition for places. Interesting thing here, and you might know this because you're quite into Ruben Neves, aren't you? Do you know how old Ruben Neves is?
Anywhere between 21 and 30.
23.
Wow.
How young is that?
All right, Joe. What?
How is he that? How is he that young? Ruben Neves seems like he's been at Wolves for 5 years, and I thought
think
he
he
was.
has.
I thought he was 22 when
I
they
think
got
he
him.
has been there for 5
I thought he
years.
was like 27, 28. He's 23.
All right, Joe. What? When there was on the other day, was it in here? It might have been
Maybe.
upstairs. And I went, why has no one bought him yet? Why is he still at Wolves?
He's so good.
Was it Arsenal they were playing?
It probably was.
And I was like, how's he still here? Yeah, I like Neves.
Yeah.
I see a lot of Carrick in him.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, right? A lot of people go, oh, you need a... NDD changed the game. Kante probably changed the game a little bit before him. People go, I need a fucking destroyer. I need someone that's just going to be energy and tackles and raw. You don't need that.
No.
You don't need that.
Well, United have had very few of them in the last 20 years, and we've, other than recently, won a fair amount in that time.
Michael Carrick, 2 free slide tackles in his career, potentially. You need someone that's got intelligent positioning, who can get the ball and advance it forward. The height and physicality of Michael Carrick, I think, is a little underrated because he's a big lad.
Yeah.
And I think he knew when to use that at the right time. And you need someone who can take the ball under pressure, move it side to side, move it forward. And I think Ruben Neves could be that guy. He's a little on the small side, though, short side.
And he's particularly slow.
Yeah.
Like he's sort of...
Yeah, Carrick weren't fast.
No.
But you're playing with Vidic and Rio. They made up for it in terms of pace.
Aditya Guatam says Scholes' pass for the O'Shea goal versus Arsenal.
Was that the 4-2 game?
I don't know.
I think that's the Keen I'll see you out there game.
Oh, is it? Sushant Dar.
He's 6 foot, is he? Why does he
Ruben
look
Neves.
about 5'8" on camera?
He's a bit shuffly, isn't he? Sushant Dar says, it's sad to see Donny nowadays because he doesn't play every week. He's lost all rhythm. Last night, when the board went up, the look on Donny's face was sad. I love Ollie, but sad to see him ruining a young quality player.
Oh, fuck off. He's not ruined him.
Yeah.
He's not like, listen, I don't know where this fucking Donny violins come from, but the Southampton game, I was impressed with him. And I thought, oh, you maybe get a bit more time here. And we was talking this morning, weren't we? But I was like, play him in the 23s. He clearly needs game time. Put him in the fucking 23s.
Because he looked tired as well, you were saying, didn't you? I mean, I agree with you, but that was
I thought
your point.
10 minutes before he went off, he didn't do anything.
No.
I thought he was just out of the game. And I think bringing him off was the right move at that time. But I also agree that there's been moments where he could have come on and surely lasted 10 minutes and didn't get them 10 minutes. So that I can't explain.
No.
But I would think that, look, I don't say he's ruined him. I would say Donny hasn't taken the opportunity that's come his way. And if you've been here 6 months, what's still going on with your fitness?
Ross Murphy with a chat there, sorry, not super chat, says Donny played too simple. He never took risks. There is something to be said, I think, for the fact that when Bruno's playing, he takes risks in that 10 position like no one I've ever seen. So anyone compared to that is going to look a bit conservative, a bit
safe.
but because
West
Bruno's
Ham played
just
3 defensive
incredible.
midfielders, Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
And parked the tank.
Yeah,
Like,
it's hard. It's hard to break through.
Ocean's fucking 12 wouldn't have got into that in defence.
Cameron Matthews, the super chat. Prime Busquets, similar play would be great. Well, yeah. Prime Busquets said, I think anyone in the world.
Or Zidane.
Any team ever would take a Prime Busquets, I believe. Right, let's get into it then. Fred or McTominay. I know you don't think necessarily either of them are the one to build a team around, but of the two, which one can stay in this team for the longest? Which one is the most adaptable? Or, who's the best player out of those two?
I think if you're looking for an X factor, I think Scott. I'd lean towards Scott. The goals, he scores important goals. Let's just have. I think he scored 2 FA Cup round winning goals. Let's just call
the
that.
one against Everton was an important goal, even though it didn't lead to a win. To go 3-2 up against Everton when they'd come from 2-0 down is an important goal, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, I would say the X factor, the fact that I'm hearing he's a leader, and I'm hearing a lot of positive things about what he's like with the rest of the squad and stuff like that. So for those X factor intangibles, I mean, although the goals are pretty tangible, measurable.
Yes, very tangible.
I would say I lean towards Scott, but much like the goalkeepers, this isn't a, oh my God, why is he playing and not him?
No.
Like left back is. But yeah.
Salad for breakfast says Freddie's 27, 28 and McTominay's 24. And to that point, part of what I would say about McTominay...
I'm only half joking about left back thing.
...is I think in the 3 years or so that he's been in the team, 2 really proper seasons, he has improved a hell of a lot. a lot of his game has improved. I
He
think
got
it's,
like a record-breaking 5K time as well.
it's like, was that 13 minutes or something ridiculous?
McTominay was a Kenyan fucking surname.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But his position has improved. His passing has improved a bit. His offensive runs and timing of landing at the ball has clearly improved. The fact that he's got 6 goals this season, that has improved. I think his leadership and his position in the squad, he has forged himself a higher and higher position every single few months. It seems as though he's more respected and players like him. And like you said, he seems to have a sort of a leadership to him. I really like Scott McTominay. I think he is limited and he wouldn't be my main guy in that midfield. But I think of the two, I think he just does offer a little bit more. Although at the moment, with the current squad we have, we do need Fred in there as well. Peter Kelly says, Fred or Scott for me depends on the position. Against the big physical side, Scott, and against the smaller sides in terms of height play, Fred. It's interesting though, because not that West Ham aren't a small side by any means, but it wasn't Scott's height that made the difference yesterday. It was the fact that he likes to play the ball a bit further up the pitch and his willingness to get forward and quality when he does so. So whilst I agree that he is clearly physically better, taller, stronger, that sort of thing, he does also have that kind of bringing the ball out advantage over Fred as well, I think. We've got another super chat, Miles Van Eaton. You see bits from Donny van der Beek that show something playing keep-ups on the touchline, but his reluctance to be daring makes him look much more average than he is. Again, I think a lot of that is just you're playing in Bruno's position, try and do what Bruno does, and I think there are so few people that can do that.
And against a team that's not going to entertain giving you any space in the slightest. I think you've got to be sympathetic to who he played against. But like I said, go let him play in the 23s. One, it's shit. Yeah. Two, you'll probably get lots of time on the ball. 3, we'll find out where your fitness is. And he's 23.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're asking him to play under 4s.
No.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not asking like 39-year-old Ryan Giggs to go play for the 23s, are you?
No, and like you said, didn't you? You think it's like a little bit demeaning for someone to be playing. I don't think it is.
It's viewed as that way though, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And it shouldn't be.
No.
Louis van Gaal was like, what? Yeah, fucking who gives a fuck? You're in the team.
Yeah.
He did it to Rojo. I remember he did it to Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
Who gives a toss? Get him in there. That actually might be what under 23s football needs. If there was a more collective approach of the Premier League managers going, I've got like 6 or 7 players.
Yeah,
here.
like Jesse Lingard could have been playing in that for the last 3 months. Like, not, and it shouldn't be and it should be a place for people to get games who need them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess what? I pay you to play football. Here's a football match.
Exactly.
Get the fuck on.
And you might get you might get more fans at the grounds. You might get, all of that stuff. The profiles in the 23s will go way up.
People will go watch reserves because you might
see Veron.
Yeah. Like, that used to be the case very often in the back in the day, and I would love it to go back to being something like that because, how many times now do you hear a manager go, he's not match fit? Well, what are you doing him to get match fit?
Yeah.
Oh, nothing. Okay.
Just going to treadmill at home for a bit. Salad for Breakfast says Man United proof football is 80% a psychological game. I think it is. I mean,
it's not
because every game's quite psychological, though, isn't it?
It's not 80%, though, is it?
No. It's probably 10, 20%. Maybe the opposite of that.
Because I think I'd struggle.
80%.
Mentality's fucking bang on, though.
Is it, though? Is it? Right, let us know.
I'll fucking launch you.
Let us know
my ankles ain't going to survive.
in the comments who you think out of De Gea and Henderson, Fred and McTominay, or whether we need both in the squad or both in the team in the case of Fred and McTominay. Let us know your thoughts on both. Thank you very much for joining us, Dee. Thank you very much for joining us at home. And we've got all the reaction to the game against West Ham yesterday. Make sure you check all that out. And we're building up towards West Brom. It's the week of the Wests, Steve. What do you think to that? The week of the Wests.
Let's have some ribs.
Right. We'll see you in a bit.